WSIC News Talk Now.
Well, good afternoon, Lake Norman, and welcome to Town Talk. We're coming to you live from WSIC, the Real Talk Studio, nestled on the banks of beautiful Lake Norman, streaming worldwide from Lisbon, Portugal to Fair Place, South Carolina. I'm your host, Bill Russell, president of the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, the largest chamber of commerce in the Charlotte region. This is a program where we discuss topics that are impacting your family, your friends, your neighbors, your business, from my neighborhood to yours. My guests today are Tim Perry. He's the managing partner of North American Properties. John Dressler with Rare Roots Hospitality, or Dressler's Restaurant as we know him from up here. And Bill Keeney, Kiwin's Chocolate Fudge and Ice Cream Store. Tim, I'm going to start with you. You guys took over from DDR about, 4 or 5 years ago?
November of 2020.
Okay, just before everything kind of got topsy-turvy. What improvements have you made at North American Properties to Burkdale?
Well, Burkdale had a lot of opportunity because it was so beloved by the community, and it had a great kind of base tendency to it, but it had started that evolution of marketing and things that have been trimmed down during COVID especially, to where the sales weren't quite what they were, and the property started looking like it was headed down a path toward less relevance from a retail and from a merchandising standpoint. So we came in and made the investments, about $20 million worth of investments just in the public realm and to the facades and to the buildings and upgrading units. The property that was over 20 years old. Made all those improvements, and I think it's been turned around. We signed 23 new leases at the property and just about completed all the improvements so far.
And for people who may not know, Burkdale is in Huntersville, located exit 25. 20 years old. Just over 20 years old, and Burkdale is a project, a mixed-use project that for 2 decades people wanted to have a Burkdale. Other communities wanted to have a Burkdale, but as anything, we have to continue to renovate, and reimagine things, and make some improvements. John, how long has Dressler's actually been at Burkdale?
Thanks for having me, Bill. We started day one, September 22nd, 2003, so we're tracking our 20th anniversary this month.
And Bill, we just celebrated 10 years for Kiwin's over there. Was it this past?
12 and a half years.
12 and a half years.
Yeah. We opened in February 2011.
12 and a half years. Wow.
Yeah.
Tim, what does North American Properties, share a little bit about what that is and what you guys do, and maybe some of the other properties that you have?
Sure. The Atlanta office of North American Properties specializes in just really operating mixed-use assets. And I think institutional or passive ownership in properties like this, think you lease it and you collect rent, and that's all you do. But it takes an enormous team to run an asset like Burkdale and the other assets. So it's fully built out with PR to social media, engineering teams, hospitality teams, concierge teams, and it's a big load that we put on these properties in order to bring this experience to you. And we have 8 of these that are operating currently. We have another one that's land that we're working on the development and continuing to expand. But that's the heavy lift that it takes. And very few people in the country understand it and get it right. And I've really got to give it to our team here at Burkdale and just in general for focusing on the guest, as we call it, the consumer experience, the relevant retail, the dwell time, the different experience, and at times, I think they're more psychologists than they are operations folks, because how you get people to walk from one side of the street and how you get to feel safe while they're walking down the sidewalk are all considerations that go into how we make these things work.
And you got a big event coming up October 14th, Taste of Burkdale.
Taste of Burkdale, and that's right.
Can you talk a little bit about what that's going to be?
That's where we bring all the local community restaurants together and have just a great old party. Our team has so much fun on the property. They're really event organizers as much as they are marketing or anything like that. So we're looking forward to having all of our partners there on property as well as others to the property.
And I think it's $60 per person, but the proceeds go to a charity, I believe.
Right. We ticket events, very few, but we do ticket some events, and those proceeds always go to some sort of local charity. Across, I don't know the breakout for Burkdale Village, but I know across our portfolio we reached about $565,000 last year for local charities. Just in general, I know we've done a lot of stuff here with Cool Kids Clubhouse and others.
And Bill, I know that Kiwin's is taking part in it.
Absolutely. We do it every year. We love to. It shows that we're part of the community, and we've been blessed, and we just want to give back.
John, I know you guys are going through some renovations. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but are you taking part in Taste of Burtdale?
I don't think we're going to be able to. We hope to. We're trying to figure the logistics out. That restaurant will be closed, so in order to make a kitchen, it would be a mobile kitchen. So it's a bit of a challenge for us. But I do want to spend just a second talking about Burtdale Village, because I remember 20 years ago when you were at the ribbon cutting, back when I had hair and your hair maybe wasn't as white. But
You're being kind.
I appreciate it. Well, we looked at Burtdale Village as this wonderful opportunity, really to bridge the north and the south of Charlotte, to bring it together off of exit 25, which was 2 lanes in and 2 lanes out. It was just, it was a great property, and we looked at a dozen properties when we were searching for our first restaurant at the turn of the century, and knowing that you had the demographic of Davidson and Huntersville and Cornelius, and bordered by the lake and bordered by the highway, and everything that Burtdale Village, the vision of what it was going to be, and we really believed in that vision. And I don't even know if you're aware, but in 2003 or 2004, Burtdale Village won a Silver Hammer Award for the greatest mixed-use development in the United States. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty cool to be a part of, and still is.
Tim, I've told you this many times. I can't tell you how many people have told me when they moved to Huntersville or came by here, they thought Burtdale was downtown Huntersville because of the feel that it had. We had a phase 2 of Burtdale that we were looking at doing, which would have brought Class A office space to the area, hotel to the area, and some apartments. Talk about why that component is needed in today's mixed-use facilities.
Well, how towns address growth is really what's needed, and how they continue investing in what is their downtown. Many still think the Burtdale Village is the downtown. It has to stay relevant, it has to stay active, and that's the community amenity. I mean, what do you not have to drive to South Park for? What do you not have to drive for? What makes this your home? And that's why we invest so heavily in community activities and community events. That's why we invest so heavily in tenants and getting the tenant mix correct. To support those tenants, right, you really have to program these assets, and they work great in 18-hour days. So that in the morning, when someone's walking a dog or on their way to work, they're getting coffee, they're getting brunch midday, they're having lunch, they're coming there. Your office, you'll never go to someone else's place for lunch again. They'll always come to you because of the number of options and the fact you can walk. And if people go home, then they come home. So I'm sure John and Bill would love daytime population. People that are there all day long, and from 6 a.m. until midnight when you're wrapping up a Panthers game, then you need something to do, and really program around that and try to stack activities and experiences so that people stay there and have a reason to stay there longer.
Well, when we get back, we're going to talk about some of the features that you've introduced, but what attracted you to Burtdale to begin with in terms of acquiring this from DDR. We're going to also talk to Bill Kinney and find out a little bit more about Kiwin's. And certainly, John, you've got some big changes coming down the pike with Dressler's restaurant.
Yes, sir.
So we'll get back to doing that as well. Stay with us on Town Talk on WSIC. We're going to be talking about some chamber activities during the break. And again, we're going to get back with Tim Perry and John Dressler and Bill Kinney. Thank you for joining us today on Town Talk, WSIC. We'll be right back.
Town Talk.
Go ahead. For those of you who are streaming on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all of our other platforms, we're going to be talking about some of the Chamber of Commerce activities that we've got going on. I'm Bill Russell, your host. We were just talking with Burtdale Village, the new owner, Tim Perry of North American Properties, and John Dressler and Bill Kinney. But coming up on October the 10th at 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock, we're having our Chamber's Business Expo. Tim, that is our showcase of our Lake Norman businesses. We typically have about 120 businesses taking part at the Business Expo. It's held at the Huntersville Recreation Center. John, Bill, have y'all had a chance to check out the Huntersville Recreation Center?
I have not. I'm sorry.
No, sir.
Oh, you'll have to come out on Tuesday, October the 10th for the expo. Again, we also have about 20 nonprofits there as well, so at least about 120, 130 of our Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce members. Again, that's taking place at the Huntersville Recreation Center Tuesday, October the 10th. We also have our candidate forums, which are going to be Thursday, October the 12th in Cornelius. We'll be having the 2 candidates for mayor and 10 candidates for town board. And on Tuesday, October the 17th, we're having our candidate forum. We're actually having 2, one on the 17th, one on the 19th. We have 3 people running for mayor of Huntersville, and we have 16 people running for town board. So we can't squeeze them all in one night. We're having to do 2 candidate forums. On the 17th, we'll have the 3 people running for mayor, along with 5 commissioners, and then the next forum 2 nights later, the balance of the commissioners. Justin Kazepis, who is the station owner here at WSIC, is going to be our MC that particular evening. Either one of y'all live in Huntersville?
I do not. I finally moved out of Concord, out of Charlotte. I'm getting closer to Huntersville. I'm now in Davidson.
Oh, okay.
So closing in on it.
Well, Davidson decided to declare their elections over with. We have 5 people running for town board and 1 mayor. So election's done. It's over.
Yeah.
But we will have a meet and greet at the Davidson Village Inn in October that you can come out to. Bill, where do you live?
We live in Concord,
Oh, okay.
Cabarrus County.
Well, both of your businesses impacted by the town board in Huntersville, so I hope you can come out. On September 14th, next Thursday, we're having our diversity luncheon taking place, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the next break. And those of you streaming with us, come back on Town Talk.
1:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Closed on Sunday. Johnson's Parts, your Auto Plus Auto Parts store.
Town Talk continues now. Here's your host, Lake Norman Chamber President Bill Russell on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Well, welcome back to Town Talk. I'm your host, Bill Russell. I've got Tim Perry with North American Properties, and I've got John Dressler with Dressler's Restaurant. Also, we got Bill Kinney with Kiwin's. John, big changes coming for Dressler's. You guys have been at Burkdale since day one, but are making a little bit of a transition. Talk about the new restaurant and the concept that you have, Fin and Fino, coming to Burkdale.
Thank you. So we opened on a Monday 20 years ago, September 22nd, 2003. It was a rainy Monday. 80 people showed up, and it took me a couple years to figure out how ignorant I was. I went outside to walk around the village one day, and I saw the sign that said Dressler's. Not Dressler's Restaurant, but Dressler's. And I thought to myself, how are people going to know the difference between a store that sells clothing and a store that sells food? So it turned out pretty good for us, and it was a good run for 20 years. But in our lease negotiations with the landlord, we asked the landlord if they were willing for us to change the concept, and they were super excited about it and indicated that we could bring Dogwood or Porter's House or Fin and Fino, our other 3 concepts, up to Burkdale Village. So we talked internally for a long while and decided that Fin and Fino was the right fit in Burkdale Village. So construction will start on our 20th anniversary, which is the 23rd of September. The 22nd is the day we opened, but that was a Friday, so we figured we might as well hang around Saturday and have an extra night. And then we'll get started with demolition on the 26th, on Monday. Demolition will last about 3 weeks, and then we'll begin construction. And Fin and Fino will be coming soon to a theater near you in the beginning to middle of February. So super excited.
You know, I was sharing before the program that I've had the opportunity to go to Fin and Fino down in Charlotte, right near the Beckler, and I've always enjoyed it. And I knew what Fin stood for. I knew about the seafood, and I said, "What is Fino?" So Fin and Fino. Tell me where you got the name.
So the Fino is Spanish for wine. It's really a sherry, technically, and we had a sherry program when we first opened. We did what we called a handshake sherry, and when the guest arrived, we showed up at the table with a little sherry, and people could take a sip on that. But we quickly learned after a few months that people weren't too keen on the sherry itself, but people were excited about the Fin and Fino concept.
You know, Susan loves seafood, and I do too, but I really like some of the items you already have. You know, I love the pimento cheese appetizer, your calamari,
Yes.
that I love your steaks. Are you still going to have some of those same things on the menu?
So it's a great question. I am among the most vilified people in Huntersville right now because that concept is going away completely. In order to make a change, you have to make a change. As we like to say in our organization, change is okay as long as it's not different. So we're actually going to change completely. All the favorites, the calamari, the crab dip, the halibut, all those can be found at the Dresslers in the Metropolitan, 1100 Metropolitan Avenue in downtown Charlotte. So feel free to, once September 23rd comes around, that's where you can go find your favorites. We probably will keep a steak or two on the menu, but that menu will be primarily fin and fino.
Well, I shared with you before the program started, I'm making my plans to go down there this afternoon.
We have seen an uptick in business since we've indicated to the public that we'll be going away as Dressler, so we appreciate it.
Bill, Kiwin's, for those who may not know what Kiwin's is, share a little bit about what is Kiwin's.
Well, Kiwin's is a chocolate fudge ice cream store that started up in the Petoskey, Michigan area back in the day in 1947. And at that time, they had a few stores around. I know when we got involved with them, a lot of people, well, the one in Blowing Rock, North Carolina, everybody thought that was the only Kiwin's. And luckily for us, it's been there for a long time, so that really helped us at the beginning. But we were interested in that concept, and I kind of have a food service background, and so it was a good change from going to where the food service that I was in. It's much more relaxed and set back and that kind of thing. But actually, Kiwin started on Mackinac Island, and so they're famous for their fudge, their ice cream. They make their own. We make our own caramel corns, caramel apples. We make as much as we can right there in the store for people. And so I tell them, yeah, it's made here and not in, San Antonio somewhere and shipped in. So, but Kiwin's, they do the fine chocolates up in Petoskey and send to us, and they make the ice cream in Petoskey, luckily, and send to us. And we have our hands full making the other made-in-store products that people love. We kind of look at senses. As soon as people walk into a Kiwin's, they smell waffle cones going on. They see fudge being made on their marble slab table. They see caramel being made. Our girls are dipping items in chocolate, and so it's just the total sight, smells. Our associates greet you, give you samples, and it's just a family experience for everyone.
Did you notice Bill commandeered the box of Kiwin's fudge and none of us can reach it? Just want to point that out.
Is this maple walnut?
It is.
Oh my golly, maple walnut is my favorite. I mean, there's no bad fudge.
Correct.
That salted caramel that you guys do.
Oh, it melts in your mouth just about. Yeah.
Bill, you said something before we started though that really surprised me about. We were asking about the candy sales, the fudge sales versus the ice cream sales, and you shared, particularly in this time of year, ice cream is predominant.
It is. I mean, it's in the warm season. Ice cream is. Gosh, it may be 75% of our sales, but then as fall comes along, then it kind of switches to the caramel apples, the caramel corns, the fudges. That's more of a fall winter kind of a feeling, whereas in the summertime it's pretty much ice cream all the way.
Tim, are we making you drool over there?
Yeah, I was about to say, don't feel too special about the fudge. I would bet half the people, if not more, that walk into Kiwin's that he knows everyone's favorite flavor, and that's what makes great. That's what makes great tenants, and that's what makes a great community. And I've walked into Dresslers before, and every single person at the bar knew the people I was walking in there with. So it really is the village, the mix of uses creates just such a great. Everyone knows your name. It's like Cheers at Birkdale Village.
Did y'all ever, at the Christmas time, have that little secret Santa where you actually you draw numbers and you go after the gifts and you could exchange it no more than 2 or 3 times or something like that? You've done that.
Yeah.
we would have my family over to my house in Huntersville, and of course my parents and brother and sister and their families would come up, and I'd always go over to Bill's, and I would get this big old basket of everything. Just we had peanut brittle, we had fudges, we had caramel, just yeah, everything you can imagine, peanut clusters, and make this nice $50 or so basket of goodies. And every year, it never failed. My father, who's now deceased, he died in 2019, but every year we would do the Secret Santa, and my father, no matter where he was in order, always made sure that he went after the Kiwins, and he knew what it was. I mean, once it was open, he went there, and he always went home with the Kiwins. But I'd also go by there and get some chocolate and some fudges and put out, and again, it's always a big hit at Christmas time.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that, and that's what it is. For 12 and a half years, we've made a lot of friends. Our customer, that's what's different about our store versus one of the more touristy areas. We have to depend on folks as repeat customers all the time. They're just not there for a week and then they go back home. And we've made so many friends and acquaintances, and I think that we've tried our best to connect to the community through the different nonprofits, the habitats and the soup kitchens and Angels and Sparrows Feed NC, and it goes on and on and on. And we've been so blessed that we've been so successful. I knew we'd be successful, but we've been more successful than I deserve. And we just enjoy giving back to the community and being a part of it.
We've got about 3 minutes left before we go to another break. But Tim, I want to talk to you about parking. Now, I've never had an issue finding a parking place over in Burkdale ever, except for National Night Out. When we had National Night Out there several years back, then you couldn't find parking anywhere because I think we had thousands of people there for National Night Out. Yeah. But we've never really had that bad of a problem. But sometimes people talk about the lack of parking. How are you addressing parking there at Burkdale?
So part of our plan that we worked last year on the town and we're not successful with was bringing a 550 space parking deck rebuilt into the middle of the where the existing decks are, right behind the multifamily and behind where Barnes and Noble is. In order to do that, and that cost $12 million, and that's just rolling through the streets. So in order to do that, that's why we had attempted to go and build the office building. Kind of the currency to pay for additional parking is the density, and there's parking. It's further out, and I don't blame people for not wanting to walk across a parking lot through two city streets around a block to go get ice cream or fudge. Like we need central parking. So we set out to do that, as well as a hotel and some maybe future multifamily pieces to bring more daytime population. But the parking really was what we wanted to address and bring all of that space into the kind of the center of the property. 70% of the guests at Burkdale Village are after 5 and on weekends. 70%. And 450 spaces is about 24% additional parking than what there is there today. We'd love to continue to work with the town to do that.
When we get back, I want to talk about some of the things that you guys are looking to do. That phase 2 of those parking decks. Again, we'll talk about that. But is that something that you'll look at maybe in 2024, 2025?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, when we come back, I want to talk to you about where you came up with the idea of coming to Burkdale. And John, I'll talk to you about some of the concepts that you've had coming up as well. Those of you who are with us, stay with us. We're going to be talking about Burkdale, some of the improvements, some of the things coming down the pike, some of the exciting plans that North American Properties have. Stay with us on Town Talk. I'm your host, Bill Russell, and we'll see you right after the break. For those of you streaming with us on any of our platforms, on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, did you know we were on LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and all those other things, Bill?
Oh, yeah.
And streaming on WSIC News as well. We were just going to be talking about in the last segment, one of the things we have coming up next Thursday is our diversity luncheon. We recognize annually the diversity champion, which we've already made that announcement. Harold Rice with the Ada Jenkins Center, which is our big community outreach center, is going to be recognized as our individual diversity champion. We recognize a nonprofit, and that I have yet to get a hold of them, but they're in Huntersville. And our corporation or business is going to be Metrolina Greenhouses. Again, Art and A. Van Wingerton have a tremendous operation out there with Metrolina, and so we're going to be recognizing them. Beth Bledsoe, who is the chief people person, kind of chief human resource officer, but chief people person, is going to be talking about re-engaging veterans into the workforce. Sometimes we don't think about veterans being a diversity topic, but that absolutely is. And so we're going to be talking about that as well. We've got a coffee connection coming up tomorrow morning, Thursday, September the 7th, 8:30 to 10, a coffee connection at Hookit Golf, which is located 340 Siegel Street, Suite 15, Huntersville. Bill, John, both of you are big, avid golfers. Have you heard of Hookit Golf?
I'm a slicer.
Well, Hookit Golf is an indoor practice facility right here in Huntersville that you can go to, and we're having a little coffee connection, a chance to network tomorrow at their place. We're asking that everybody bring an item to give to Lydia's Loft. So again, you can look at that information on our chamber's website. We also have a business after hours coming up at Bio-Oncology. That's coming up, I think, next Thursday. 9801 Kinsey Avenue, Suite 150, Huntersville. So a lot of Chamber of Commerce activities taking place, networking events that you can go to lakenormanchamber.org and see some of those activities. But again, the expo coming up, the candidate forums, and then tomorrow's coffee connection. We'll be right back on Town Talk.
With Lake Norman Chamber President Bill Russell on the new 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Welcome back to Town Talk. I'm Bill Russell, your host. I have John Dressler with Rare Roots Hospitality, Bill Keeney with Kiwin's Chocolate Fudge and Ice Cream, and Tim Perry, the managing partner of North American Properties. And we're talking about Burkdale, but I understand we have Commissioner Dan Boone on the line. Dan, are you there?
Yes, I am, Bill. How are you today?
I'm doing good. So you've been watching the show?
Yeah, I was thumbing through here, and I heard your voice. I said, let me listen here for a little while. And you have some guests here that I've met everybody. I'm sure they don't remember me, that's for sure.
Dan, what do you go out to Dressler's very often or stop by Kiwin's for some fudge?
Well, usually a good night for me is to go to Dressler's for dinner and go over to Kiwin's for dessert.
We won't tell my mother.
Mr. Dressler, Mr. Dressler, you probably don't know who I am, but I've eaten at your restaurant many times, and it's been excellent every time I've been in there. And I always get the wedgie salad with the braised short rib with the mashed potatoes.
Yes, sir.
And the food is excellent. But the one thing I got to compliment you on is a Tamara Griffin.
Yes.
I always asked her, she was a waitress, and that's a lost art for people who know how to serve food. And she was excellent. I don't know if she still works for you or not, but I will never forget her, that's for sure.
She works with us still, and I will tell her that you asked for her. We're during our renovation, she's going downtown to Fino to learn the ropes down there. So she's been around a few years. We have a lot of long-term employees. I pride myself. We're a family-owned business also, and I think the best we ever did was 2011. We had to mail out 3 W-2s. Everyone else was a current employee, so it's pretty cool. I will tell Tammy you asked for, and I know exactly who you are.
Dan, you mentioned that you also go by Kiwin's. So are you a chocolate or an ice cream guy?
Well, you know what? I hate to say this, but I am a turtle cheesecake ice cream guy.
Okay.
It's pretty specific, yeah.
I hope you know that flavor, but and again, you helped me out with sending some fudge to Daniel Island, South Carolina.
Oh,
And
good. Thank
we
you.
went to an El Lady, and there was something wrong with the address, and you called me at home, and we worked it out. She got her fudge, And I just want to say that's customer service at its best. And I don't see you in the store as much as I used to. Stephanie is a Class A owner operator herself.
Well, thank you
I
very
believe that's
much.
your daughter.
Yeah, she's my daughter, and she's a blessing, I tell you. Thank you. Yeah.
And John, you guys did have cheesecake on your menu because it was awful good. You still have cheesecake?
We still do. Oh, yeah. We can get rid of anything we want, but my mother would never allow me to get rid of the cheesecake. She's been making it since December of 2003. We did it as a feature, figuring, it would not go over that well. She made 8 cheesecakes, single cake at a time, 3 hours per cake in a single oven. She made 8 cheesecakes, and she called me Friday night, said, how'd we do? I said, pretty good. Sold 36 pieces. It was well received. And she called me Saturday night. She said, how'd we do? I said, well, I got good news and bad news. The good news is we sold the other 44 pieces of cheesecake. The bad news is there's like 200 people want to come back and eat the cheesecake. So that started the legend of the cheesecake, which is now in every one of our restaurants.
Commissioner Boone, before I let you off the line, and I know you probably have things to do, but before you get off, I think you are putting, you and the board are putting $58 million in front of the voters to be decided in a bond package. I think $50 million is dedicated to transportation improvements, $8 million to parks and rec. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Tell me, how does Commissioner Dan Boone stand on that?
Well, I raised my hand in support of those. I think if the bonds aren't passed, the transportation improvements that the town is making right now, they come to a halt. And if you talk to anybody in town, the greenways is so important to them, not only with exercise and the connectivity, it's an important issue for the town. And I think that Mr. Perry can tell you this, the people enjoy walking around Burkdale Village. I've enjoyed going out there. I think it's called Under the Oaks, the live entertainment, Mr. Perry, on the weekends.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Correct. And I can't wait till the Taste of Burkdale comes up in October. That's always a great outing.
You hit, Commissioner, you hit on a great point. I mean, when trails, when they flip from just pure recreational to pedestrian transit, you've done something right, and that takes a lot of investment from towns and municipalities all over. So, thank you for doing that. And everyone loves to come and stroll and enjoy the village.
Dan,
My last question, Bill. My last question.
Okay.
The question I've been asked every day, it seems. When is the Apple Store opening?
Not sure what you're talking about.
That's been announced.
How's that cheesecake?
Dan, during the last break, I talked about tomorrow morning we're having a business before hours at Hook It Golf. I hope I see you there. I know you're a big supporter of our small business.
Well, I've been to Hook It Golf, and it's a nice small business, and that's what drives the economy in Huntersville, small businesses.
Dan, thank you for what you are doing and what the rest of the town board is doing for our town, and I appreciate you joining us today.
Gentlemen, have a nice afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Tim, we talked about some of the parking issues. One of the other things this summer is I've never known any crime or things to be taking place in Burkdale Village, but we had 2 incidents sort of back-to-back in July. I talked to Major Brian Vaughn yesterday regarding what's going on, and he said that, first off, they've got some great leads on what happened at Finks, but that he was working very closely with North American Properties, and you continue to make it a very safe environment. And again, John and Bill, we were talking about how there's a continued police presence. But again, North American and Huntersville Police Department making a great atmosphere for people to live, work, and visit over at Burkdale Village. But he said the tremendous relationship he has with North American Properties.
We've worked really hard to foster that relationship, because in every community, we just call it back the blue, right? In every community, the better relationship you can have, the better response you have, and the more collaboration you have. And when you do create a town center or a successful mixed-use property, you end up with a lot of people there, and that's good because there's a lot of eyeballs, but it does then require additional safety. So we've increased our safety since we purchased it by maybe 35%, which is substantial. It's well over 200, probably pushing 300 hours a week now of on-site security. So they're there. And then we've advanced. It was always part of the sort of the development plan as we were increasing parking decks and additional density to put in safety cameras that were present so that you could help. They're not great at necessarily deterring, but they're better at solving when you have issues like that. And we're working very closely with Huntersville Police Department in a public safety aspect to do that. And it is a national issue. It's an issue at properties you read about it, and if you don't get all over it, then it becomes something that you can't dig back out of. So we put a lot of time, energy into a safe environment for our guests.
Tim, several years ago, you invited Mayor Bales with the town, myself, Anthony Roberts, Sally Ashworth would visit Lake Norman. We went down and saw Avalon at Alpharetta, kind of before you started making some of the improvements to Burkdale that we've seen. But we saw sort of the model for what you were trying to bring. You brought some of those aspects, but we've seen some changes already take place. The green space with the TV and the families coming out, the ice skating rink, which we saw last year. But talk us about some of those improvements that you guys made, the jewel boxes. Right. Talk about some of those improvements and why they were introduced.
Yeah, a lot of that is connectivity, and it's creating great. The third place, probably overused by now, is something we've used a lot for the last few years, but it's getting people to come and spend some time with each other and to have options and things to do. So the jewel boxes aren't just there because they're pretty or because they're four-sided storefront. They're there because it pulls people into the center, grassy area under the trees and across to shops on the other side. They're there to create great places for the stroller yoga or the Burkdale Buds or the various events that are a Panthers game to a concert under the Oaks. So you put a lot of time into figuring all that out, and then the parking spaces along the road. I mean, people feel safe where you have one-way parking. One-way roads. People feel safer when you have elevated crosswalks. People feel safe, which is something we're bringing into the second phase, and then people feel safe when there's parallel parking. It creates a real boundary between the pedestrian realm and the vehicular realm. And even when it comes to the crosswalks, if you can, the width of the space between the stamped brick, if you can feel it in the steering wheel, then you feel uncomfortable. And so, you drive through somewhere like Burkdale Village, we want the car to feel uncomfortable in a pedestrian environment. So we're very attuned to all of that and the improvements that come with it. But at the end of the day, it is to provide the best guest experience possible, which is why at half the size of Avalon, Burkdale has the full concierge program, and everyone should stop by. You want the soon-to-be impossible reservation to get at Fin and Fino, go to the concierge. They know people. Right, or a dog biscuit, or you need something delivered if you're an apartment resident there on site. That's why they're there.
Bill, we've got only 60 seconds left, but that's green space right in front of Kiwin's. What's that meant to Kiwin's?
Well, a lot of people are there. It's wonderful. I mean, they come into our store and have ice cream, and I'd say, well, go out there underneath the trees and sit there. You put these nice chairs and benches and all that there. I mean, it's. We don't have indoor seating, so that really works out great for us. So it's nice, and to stay under the shade too.
Sell a lot of ice cream to those folks.
Oh, we do. Yes, sir.
Well, when we get back, we're going to talk about, again, some of the changes that we're looking at making at Burkdale, and we're going to talk about the concept, again, that John is introducing. And we'll talk a little bit more about Kiwin's, one of my favorite chocolate and ice cream stores. This is Bill Russell. I'm the host of Town Talk, and please stay with us. Those of you who are streaming out there with us, we've got a lot of things we've been talking about with the Chamber of Commerce, but one of the huge programs that we have is a program called Leadership Lake Norman. We've been doing that program since 1997. We have over 650 graduates of Leadership Lake Norman. We're accepting applications through Friday. This coming Friday is going to be the application deadline. We've got we've got at least two people that went on after being through Leadership Lake Norman, went on to the State House. We have 3 former police chiefs. We have Our town managers have gone through that. A lot of business community leaders, several Chamber of Commerce board chairs, board members, civic club presidents, again, all going through Leadership Lake Norman. They have an opportunity of about 7 months of looking at economic development, community infrastructure, health care, history. One of the things we do is we typically tour Southwire, which produces the cable. It's the large tower in the town of Huntersville. But again, and from the top of that tower, you can see all the way into Charlotte. It is a really nice facility. We're fortunate to have Southwire in our community. But the application deadline is September the 8th if you're looking at going through Leadership Lake Norman. About 12 years ago, we introduced Junior Leadership Lake Norman, which is Rising High School Juniors. Their program is about 5 months and is closely resembling Leadership Lake Norman, not quite as intense as the adult program. The application deadline for Junior Leadership Lake Norman is September 15th. You can see both of those programs on our website at lakenormanchamberofcommerce.org. Tim, are you very involved in the yeah, now you're in Atlanta?
I'm in Atlanta, very involved in the North Fulton Chamber where I live, North Fulton County. But we've had the pleasure of being pretty involved with you as well over the last few years.
Have you been through Leadership Atlanta or any of those programs down there?
I have not.
Okay. What are some of the things that you guys do with your local Chamber of Commerce in Atlanta?
Actually, on Monday, we're going to D.C. We have an annual D.C. fly-in. We go and spend time with our U.S. senators and U.S. representatives in Washington, D.C. And Avalon, North American Property, has always been a big sponsor of that, as well as investing in leadership growth and education, diversity, and everything that benefits our community. So we're huge benefits. And
I'm glad you brought that up. This coming Friday, we're going to have a program on the CMS bonds. That's going to be a special focus Friday, 8:30. We're going to be talking about $2.5 billion in bonds. So those of you streaming with us, we're going back live in just a few seconds.
Cape Shop.
It's Town Talk with Lake Norman Chamber President Bill Russell on the new 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Well, welcome back to Town Talk. I'm your host, Bill Russell. My guest are Tim Perry. He's the managing partner of North American Properties. John Dressler with Rare Roots Hospitality. And Bill Keeney with Kiwin's Chocolate Fudge and Ice Cream. John, how did you and Kim get into the hospitality business? How did you decide I'm going to open up a restaurant? Now you have several concepts.
Yes, so it's a great question. I always knew as a kid I wanted to own my own business. I just had no idea what it would be. I have a long background in hospitality and restaurants. I worked as a dishwasher and a busboy and a waiter and a manager. And I started with Morton's Steakhouse as a full-time vocation, actually 30 years ago last month. And when I started in 1993 and when I moved to Charlotte in 1996, I thought that there was great opportunity to have a restaurant. There weren't a lot of restaurants in 1996 in Charlotte. There were maybe 5 or 6 decent high-end places, and I thought this would be a great town to have one in. So I met my wife. We started talking about it. She thought I was crazy. She still thinks I'm crazy as we continue to open restaurants. But we looked Birkdale Village. We looked at the Hearst Tower. We looked at Concord Mills before it was ever out of the ground. But ultimately, we came back to Birkdale Village because I just so believed in the vision of day one of Birkdale Village of what they thought it would be and what I thought it would be. And it's been exactly that marriage for 20 years. So,
and how many restaurants do you have?
We have 5. We just sold Dogwood Southern Table in South Park last week, and we're opening Chapter 6 in South End next week.
And when you were washing dishes at 16, did you see yourself owning 5 restaurants in your future?
No, I saw myself owning nothing. No, it's not true. I knew I wanted to go to college. I wanted to go to graduate school. I wanted to own a business. A restaurant, I never would have guessed.
And you are a Penn State graduate, and you guys took care of business against West Virginia this past weekend.
We did, and word out of State College is this is our best crew since 2017, which I believe was 11-1 and a Rose Bowl victory. So James Franklin recruited his second 5-star kid, the quarterback Drew Aller. The first 5-star kid he drew is at that Parsons guy plays for Dallas. I think he's gotten a lot of press. He's pretty decent. So we're excited for the prospects of Penn State this year.
John, it was a rather crushing week for me. I woke up Saturday morning to the news that Jimmy Buffett had passed, and I'm a huge Buffett guy.
Yeah.
And then Saturday night, the Gamecocks, I had high aspirations, and it was not to be. Unfortunately, I think they left the offensive line back at Columbia. They didn't bring them up, and so it was pretty bad. But
that's week one.
Yeah, week one, and then of course Duke lays one on Clemson, which was pretty brutal. But
was impressive.
kind of a weird weekend. LSU, Florida State. Who would have saw that coming? I mean,
how about Dion?
Right.
Yes, Dion.
That's the talk of the town.
Prime time. He said that was going to watch us now. And gosh, Mosey. Bill, let's talk about Kiwin's. Where did the concept come from? Did you see yourself getting into the fudge ice cream business?
Not necessarily. Growing up in Roanoke, my father, he was also in the food business, and he'd had a chain of fast food restaurants and a couple cafeterias and full service restaurants back in the days. I mean, we're talking back in the 70s and 80s. And so that was kind of my background. I went to the Culinary Institute, worked with him. When my wife and I moved down to Charlotte 35 years ago, she was working for a bank, and I started working with Aramark, worked with them for 18 years. And when I was with Aramark, I met the Kiwin's folks up in Blowing Rock, and they kept trying to talk me into it. And I said, "Nah, I'm good. I got 401k and all that, so I'm good." But then the culture kind of changed, and I kind of wanted to do something else. And I think because my dad, he owned his own businesses back in the day, I think kind of like John, I mean, I think I had in the back of my mind, it'd be nice to be your own boss and that kind of thing. Kiwin's is a very, very laid back, even though they're very, very strict on their branding and all that. But I mean, I don't have to worry about getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning any longer and being at work and being there till 8 or 9 o'clock at night and breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But having my daughter come with me, my daughter Stephanie, she came with me when we opened the store back in 2012. I couldn't do it without her. And then she brought her husband along. I mean, he was working another job, and he said, "What do you think about Josh coming along?" I said, "Sure, whatever." So now they kind of run the business, and they're looking forward to. Now we're working on selling the business to them. So we hope we're going to be there for a long time, please. Anyway, but it's been fun for us. It's just because of the families and the relationships that we've made in this community. It's been fun for all of us. It's been a blessing, and it's been what it is.
Bill, you and your family give back to a portion of your proceeds to area charities, and you have for quite a while. Why is giving back to the community so important for Kiwin's?
Well, when you think about, I was trying to write down some of the things, why did we come to Burkdale and different things about location and all that, but there's just a higher power that's brought us to Burkdale and to be as successful as we have been. I mean, in these 15 years, I mean, businesses have come and gone. I don't know. I mean, I didn't know Burkdale from Smirkbell back in the day, and a friend told me about it, and I said, "Wow, this is the place." And I'm not that smart to be as successful as we've been, and it's just been a help of a lot of people, and we've been blessed, and we just kind of look at ourselves as we've been blessed more than we can need. And there's so many people up here that people don't realize in Lake Norman, everybody thinks they live on the lake and they have big homes, and there's such a need in the Lake Norman area, in the Huntersville area, and these folks are the ones that have supported us through the years, and we just want to support them. So that's kind of why we do these things.
Tim, change comes whether we want it or not, and we're making changes at Burkdale. John, you're making changes at Dressler's, and we've touched on this already, but I want you again to talk about the transition from Dressler's, which is right now still a very, very popular restaurant, but you saw a need to transition away and introduce something new up here. And talk about that, and talk about when that transition takes place. Again, I know we covered it in the first part of the show, but what's the timeline?
Yeah, my hope was that we would have one restaurant and it would last forever, and that would be where I worked, and that was it. But I think certainly as you get older, you realize part of the entrepreneurial spirit is not only making opportunities for yourself and your family, but it's making opportunities for other people and their families, the people that work with you. So we continue to grow from within. We've only grown from within. We don't hire people from the outside. We like to joke that it's a lot like the mafia without the leg breaking and the threats, but it's very family based. It's very insular. It's very protective. We do a lot of things in the community, most of which we don't bring attention to ourselves, not because we think it's wrong, but it's always the right thing to do is to help in your community. But I just felt, looking at sales and looking at the P&L over the years that, especially the last few years, that I have a fiduciary responsibility to the employees and their families to keep it viable. And I just didn't see 2, 3, 4 years from now that concept remaining viable. Sales are still good, but they could be better. And I think that changing the concept right now is the perfect time to do it. So as we hit our 20th anniversary on 22 September, we'll steal an extra day on Saturday. We'll close, we'll renovate, we'll change. And the thing that I've been telling people to allay their fears is the reason why people go to Dressler's is because of the service, the ambiance, and the food, and those things will remain. Though the ambiance will be different, service will still be the same, and the food will be different. It'll still be outstanding.
Tim, we've had some new restaurants and new businesses come in. Certainly, a new retail business, Monkey's, opened up just a few weeks ago, and we had a ribbon cutting for them at the Chamber of Commerce. Welcome them. Cheesecake Factory came in, and it was packed. I mean, it was doing a thriving business. One of the businesses I enjoy going to just for a haircut and to grab a brew, the Kilted Buffalo. I love the Kilted Buffalo.
One of a kind.
Yeah, right.
Sean is a big Marshall guy, but he's also a Green Bay Packer, and so we've got some commonality there. We got 2 minutes left. What are some other businesses that you can talk about maybe coming in, or some changes that are coming down the pike for Burkdale?
To what John's saying, a lot of relevant, kind of new retail. I mean, Foxcroft is coming in, Bar Taco is coming in. We've got our tiny retail. As you kind of move blocks around, move Victoria's Secret to make room for Lululemon, and you take the Lulu and you put in Evereve and tenants. So all up and down the boulevard, it's really a new relevant merchandising mix. And to what John said, Huntersville 20 years ago was a different place. And now you have people that are attracted to it because it's a great village, a great community. And they have great fudge, and they have great restaurants. But as people have kids, those kids move away, they move back, or as kids form families, move out, they bring a palate with them. And that palate is what these gentlemen and we hope to serve.
Well, we certainly enjoy having you three here today, and I want everybody to remember, if it's Wednesday afternoon, we're talking about our towns on Town Talk on WSIC. We'll see you next week. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The new 105.